Hi, and a happy new year to you all. I hope you had a nice Christmas and New Year. So we're going to kick off January by talking about the Three of Swords, which I drew randomly from the minor arcana cards. So what I was thinking of this year as a part of my New Year's resolutions would be to try and finish this whole series off this year, which is quite demanding because the majors and the court cards in particular do take a fair bit of time up, so we'll see how it goes. Also in this video we'll talk about some crystals to help people that maybe get this card up in a reading and it's central to their particular situation. So we've got the rose quartz here, we've got Apache tears, which normally you would have two of, but just for demonstration purposes just one here. And third crystal would be the rhodonite, which here is on a necklace. I don't know if you can see that, sort of blacky browny colour, and we've got a sculpture of it here. Another thing I'm doing this month is I'm following another person's tarot challenge, and she's called Owl Moon. The link is in the description box down below, and it's basically just going through a card a day and doing some path working with the cards. So for anyone that's interested in sort of some structure and a tarot challenge, as she puts it, that's a really good link to that. Another thing was just the Rider-Waite card here, which is somewhat different, but again quite colourful. Probably freaks people out when it comes into a reading. So anyway, we'll go through the description of the symbology in this card along with the astrology, numerology and everything else that goes with it, and then we'll finish off looking at the card within a reading. Okay, on to the next section. Okay, we'll look at a bit of the philosophy of the card, and we'll just start briefly just looking at the Tree of Life. Again, it's another three, which is associated with the third Sephiroth, which is B.O.T.A, and on this particular diagram it shows you the rulership of the Sephiroth with the different planets. So here we have Saturn. The threes are normally favourable, apart from the Three of Swords, principally because they're high up and close to the source in B.O.T.A. It just doesn't quite work out for the three here, mainly due to the astrology of the card. The Three of Swords also contains the planet Saturn, so this card gets a double dose of Saturn, which actually overwhelms any balancing effect that Libra might have, or the association, the close association with the godhead here, which is B.O.T.A. The decan, as we can see with the its Rider-Waite counterpart there, is the second decan of Libra, which is 10 to 20 degrees. Okay, moving on to the card itself. Essentially you've got the dark sort of chaotic clouds in the background there, which envelop us. If we were to step in the card and visualize actually being there, it would be like in thick smoke, almost thicker than fog. So we can't find our way out, and we're pretty much hurting due to what's going on here. The rose here is being damaged by the central sword and the two curved swords coming together. So the central sword, sometimes some people say that that's the main event that's causing us this mental and intellectual anguish, which always would spill over emotionally as well. And the two curved swords are our self-harm in this situation, so they would be like the thoughts that sort of damage us, a little bit like the Seven of Swords, the futility, but this is much more to our core, which again the rose represents our core, our heart, so this is much more deeper rooted sort of feeling than the Seven of Swords, which is a much more milder and passive sort of card. This sword here is said to be the sword of the magician, and we've got the sun and moon there with the snake regeneration wrapping round. But in the Thoth deck, you can easily see that in the ace of swords, it's very much there, and in a much brighter environment. You've got all the inscription on the sword there, and looks in much better shape than the sword in the 3 there, which is looking a bit miserable. So it doesn't take long for the suit of swords to degenerate, shall we say. So probably the main thing now to look at would be the astrology. So as I said, we've got a double dose of Saturn in Libra. Saturn's all about time, restriction, brings in hard lessons in life, so never particularly sort of happy association, especially in the emotions and the intellect. Saturn is exalted in Libra, which means it's actually supposed to be a good place for it to be, but again, it doesn't work out there because of the double dose of Saturn that you also get from the Sephiroth itself. So the Libra, which likes relationships and balance and harmony, does not sit well with Saturn, which likes imposing restrictions on things. Also, Libra is associated with the adjustment card, or the justice, as the Rider-Waite equivalent would be, which is all about action, reaction and karma. So in a sense, this card is bringing out our karmas, that sorrow is just another aspect of the human experience. And if we look at why this suit of swords degenerates so quickly, we'll just go to the tetragrammaton here. As you see, Hebrew reads from right to left, so you've got Yod, Hey, Vav, and the final Hey there. These represent the fire, the water, air, and earth. And the equivalent in the Christian text would be Yahweh, which was the name of God. So these elements, the Yod and Hey, that's fire and water, and they're both really sides of the same coin. They're both like a oneness there, and you want to get the separation once you get to the air, or the valve, which is the third aspect of the tetragrammaton. So there you've got separation from the oneness of the Yod and the Hey. So it's this separation that causes us our conflict in the world, because the mind, the intellect, is something which constantly divides, so we can never find oneness with the mind, which is why we can never think our way to God, no matter how philosophical or intellectually we are developed, because the mind can only ever see in black and white, in dualities. So we have to go further to intuition and higher states of intuition, and there are states of awareness in meditation which just are way beyond and leave intuition behind. So just to recap, the intellect is not a particularly good way to a good place to be, or it can be quite a dangerous place to be, and unpredictable. So if we go back now to the rest of the card, symbology is pretty much done there. Probably all that's left now would be to look at we could look at the numerology, and that would be the 3's representing a triangle, manifestation in time and space. So again, Saturn's influences are quite heavy here, because Saturn is all about time and space, and the third Sephiroth is where you get the first separation from the Godhead. So again, you're going to have resistance and conflict there. And I think that's it. The couple of quotes from the from Crowley that it says that B.O.T.A here is not the beneficent mother completing the Trinity with Keta and Hogmar. She represents the darkness of the Great Sea, and he also calls it the womb of chaos. So in his brief description of these cards, he's saying pretty much what I said at the beginning, that just because this card is in B.O.T.A doesn't necessarily mean to say it's going to be a particularly easy card to draw. So divinatory meanings of this card would be sorrow over past hurts or losses, separation, relationship breakups, longing to be whole within yourself, can represent a deep-seated loss and grief, such as the loss of a parent or loved one, long-term depression it can represent, or the end of a marriage or a long-term relationship. So this goes to the heart of the matter. As I say, very different to the Seven of Swords, which is a lot more superficial, where that's actually coming from. Okay, we'll go on to the final section and just show this card aspected with a few others, and perhaps a few good crystals to use if you are feeling overwhelmed by the Three of Swords and what it entails. Okay, see you in the final section. Hi and welcome to the final part of the video, and we'll just discuss the Three of Swords in relation to and aspecting a few of the cards that we've met in the previous videos. So, various ways to interpret them. Obviously you've got the Three of Swords, which is, as we've explained, sort of being enveloped in darkness and sort of mental turmoil, as the sword suits represent. Along with obviously that mental turmoil, you're going to get the emotions in there as well. So these cards aspecting the Dominion card would, obviously this relates to well, it's Mars and Aries, so you've got quite a force here, and these two can aspect and be representing maybe someone who has had the misfortune of being dominated by somebody, being bullied, which can it can be part of a relationship, which can lead to all of the emotions and turmoil that go with the Three of Swords. Or it can be someone who's holding on to previous hurt and therefore they're unable to express themselves fully, and it's almost like they're not claiming their domain in the world because of previous hurts. So that's two completely different ways of interpreting these two cards together, and obviously it would depend on the situation and how they're actually pulled in relation to other cards. But again, just from those two scenarios, there's a fair bit that comes from that. A lot more specific if we look and introduce the Two of Cups, which is Venus and Cancer. So you've got all the openness in the Two of Cups with Venus and Cancer and love flowing, and obviously that has been prevented by the Sorrow card. So it could be someone who has previous hurts and is not able to accept love in their lives at the moment. So that would be probably a standard interpretation of these two cards together. Two very different energies in these two cards. Go to the Debauch card. Both of these cards are quite black. And debauch would be someone who's maybe taking to excesses in their lives. Could be drink, could be drugs, due to previous hurts. Again, the sorrow could relate to a relationship hurt. It could be the loss of a parent, someone who's maybe drinking after the loss of a parent. That certainly was me. I certainly did drink quite a bit after my father passed away, so you know, bringing something personal into this, then that would relate to me, so I can relate to these two cards completely. That's those two. And should we take a final one? The Game card. That's quite a positive card. The Nine of Discs is someone who has developed their material side, and obviously, as you can see in the game card, it's as we discussed, it's a very bright coloured card and very positive. And this could relate to someone who's maybe not being able to achieve their full potential materially because of things that are going on in their personal life. So they're going to need to be much more resolved in their mental world to be able to achieve what they want to out in the physical world. So again, that's the pairing of these two. A couple of things that overcome or help to overcome sorrow is one of these is rose quartz, and these are crystals we can use when we're in these sort of circumstances. This is the stone of love and of the higher heart chakra, and it gives vibrations of compassion, empathy, forgiveness and unconditional love. It can be worn as a pendant, so that these energies can be imbibed by the person wearing it throughout the day. So it's helpful in removing excessive negative energies from people and the environments that they're in. So very, very good for the sorrow card. Apache tears, I've actually used these under my pillow. These are brilliant for resolving bad dreams, because I used to get a lot of those. So, and these really do work. Best to use them as a pair. Again, these are very good dealing with the loss of a loved one. And the final crystal is rhodonite, which just helps to transform and stabilize the emotions, and it stops the emotions from being so scattered and ungrounded. And as we can see in the, if you go back to the sorrow card, there's a lot of scatter and chaos in the background there. So again, this is very good for all resolving sorrow. And you can also have it carved by it like this, just have it on your desktop or on your bedside table, something like that. Okay, so very brief section here, no great detail in terms of reading, which is down to time constraints, but that gives at least some direction as to how these can be, the sorrow card can be related to different cards in the deck. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.